Welcome to EnVision Center News, where we discuss community impact and involvement with today's nonprofit leaders and philanthropists.
Tiffany, hello and welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Excited to talk about the work that you're doing in your passion project. But before we get into that, can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a North Idaho native. I was born at Kootenai Hospital because there's not one in Mullen, Idaho, and that's where I grew up. My mom still lives there. My sister lives in Wallace, and we live in Hayden. The farthest I ever have moved away was when I went to college in Lewiston, so I always come back to this area. I have 4 children. My oldest is 23, and she's getting married this June. My only son is 17, and he's a junior at Coeur d'Alene High School. 13-year-old at Canfield and an 11-year-old at Hayden Meadows.
Nice. Very nice. And what has your career looked like?
I've always worked in the medical field. Have been a CNA since I was 16 years old, and so I thought I wanted to be a nurse, but then I realized they were all crazy. All of my family is nurses, so they will get it. So I am the outreach director for Advanced Home Health and Hospice, and I've done home health for about 22 years and hospice for the last 6.
Okay, so you're not someone that's really bounced around a ton and tried a million different things. No. And what kinds of nonprofit work have you been involved in at any point in your life? Maybe you've had different passions there, or maybe you haven't.
Before I started my nonprofit, I was the chairman for the Walk to End Alzheimer's in North Idaho. I've been a volunteer for Family Promise, United Way, Race for a Cure. Oh gosh, I don't even know. I'm a Kiwanian. I am the parent advisor for Idaho Drug Free Youth. So I joked the other day that my family is nonprofit junkies.
Yeah, you sound like it. And that's a good kind of a common theme with folks that come on the podcast or that we just interact with at the EnVision Center. And it's kind of cool and also kind of not cool in some ways. I have mixed feelings about it because it tends to be the same people that are doing the work across all these different nonprofits and all these different areas. And, there's some people that never touch a nonprofit their whole life. And then there's people like you that are doing so much, plus raising your family, plus having a career of your own. So I commend you for all the different things that you've been involved in. What inspires you or gets you to be involved in different things? Like, is it that you tend to have a personal connection, like somebody in your family had Alzheimer's, or is there a friend of yours that's on a board somewhere and they invite you to join, or what usually makes you land where you land with all these different works?
Different things. So Alzheimer's, my first job as a CNA, I worked in a locked Alzheimer's ward, and so just became very passionate about it. There was actually a woman that grew up in Mullen, and I knew her grandchildren, and she was very, very late stages Alzheimer's, didn't make a lot of sense. And one time I said something that I was driving to my mom's house, and the nurse said, "In Mullen," and Eleanor piped up and said, "Be careful on the pass," which is something, she recognized that I was driving to Mullen. I was like, oh, she's still there. And that's what started my passion about helping the Alzheimer's Association, is that I wanted to help those people. Other things, Family Promise, my church needed volunteers. And then after the first time we stayed with the homeless families and helped and ate dinner and just sat with them, I'm like, these are people that are working and trying, and it could happen to any of us. We're all only a paycheck away from being destitute. And I was like, I can stay at the church once every 3 months and hang out with these people, and then I've brought my children into it. My son is, he's worse than me, and so that's also how I get drug into it. Hagen will be like, well, I need a parent advisor. And I'm like, okay, I guess I could do that. And then, you start being with these people and seeing the need and helping them, and it's just like, well, it's easy. And once you do it the first time, the second time's easier.
Okay, tell me about what led you to found your nonprofit.
So back in 2017, February, my father, who was 58, actually, Christmas time's very hard, and it's always hard for people that have lost family members. But my dad was a construction worker, so he was normally home from Thanksgiving to Christmas. And in 2016, he was. And he was sick. He just didn't feel good the whole time. And you could tell. And he went to the doctor, and he yeah, you might have pneumonia. We'll give you some antibiotics. So on New Year's Day of 2017, he sent my mom and sister and I to have a spa day. That was our Christmas present. And it was the last time that we saw him. Saw him okay. My mom and sister were able to go down. He was working in Knoxville, Tennessee, and just continued to feel bad. And if you've ever been around construction workers, they don't go to the doctor, they don't take care of themselves, and they never miss work. Well, he did those things until he couldn't and was not able to get out of the bed. So my mom flew down there and took him to the hospital. He was put into a medically induced coma. Actually started to get better after 3 weeks. They transferred him to a rehab facility, and he died 2 days later from a secondary infection. And he was only 58.
Wow.
Having small children, my youngest was 2 at the time, I maintained, I dealt with it. I truly now know I just compartmentalized it and pretended it didn't happen and pushed on. That September, I was working the home health side. You know, I'd only done the rehab side, and I had this patient that definitely needed to go on hospice. She had Huntington's disease, and she was down to about 98 pounds. She was 5'10". She was falling out of bed. She just was just in a mess. And so I was talking to her husband and said, you know, I think that hospice would be more appropriate, and you have to have a face-to-face with a doctor. And he's like, I can't take her to the doctor. Like, she's going to hurt herself. She's going to hurt me. I said, okay, I'll figure it out.
Because she's going to fight.
And it's very jerky. I don't know if you're familiar with Huntington's, but I always say it's the opposite of ALS because most people are familiar with that and how they shut down. These people can't stop. It's just like their nerves. That's why she was so thin. And so I said, oh, we'll figure it out. And I made the appointment. And the night before, I started just having a full panic attack. She's going to open the door and fall out of the car. She's going to kick me. I'm going to run into a building. So I called a girlfriend and I said, can you come help me with this? And so we went over to the house and I said, Rebecca, we're going to go see the doctor. I want to take you in the car. And so we got her in the wheelchair. It was like she was calm. You would have thought we had sedated her. She just kind of did everything super easy. It was like a 5-minute long doctor's appointment. She saw her. She said, yes, I agree, hospice appropriate. We took her home, and when we pulled in, she reached up and she touched my friend's shoulder and said, would you please drive more? She had not spoken in the 6 months I had known her. And I looked at Eve and I said, we better keep going. And so we drove around the block, and there was a playground near her house, and she was laying against the window looking at the kids. She had known she was prone to having Huntington's. It ran in her family, so she had chosen never to have children, and she's just looking at the kids. We got her home. Hospice got in that evening, and she died 36 hours later. And that was when that compartment that I had put my dad in just broke open. The first and only time in my life I've been truly depressed and couldn't get out of bed, and I was devastated. And I kept saying, why didn't I take her for other rides? Why didn't I do this before? I have the friends, I have the accessibility to wheelchairs, why didn't I do this? And someone said to me, well, why don't you? And it was like I needed that kind of tough love. And I was like, okay, why don't I? And I went to the library that day and I got a book. I don't remember the exact title, but something like Nonprofit for Dummies. And I started down the checklist. And
that's wild. Can you explain just a little bit like what is hospice? Because my grandpa passed a couple years ago, and that was the first time that I had to deal with that at all. And for me, it was kind of a distance. It was more my mom that was taking care of him, but I was the second ring, I guess you could say. And I just, at that point, I thought, I didn't fully understand what hospice care actually meant. I thought that if you go on hospice care, that means you're going to like die in 30 days or something like that. Like you're literally at the end. And I didn't learn some people come off hospice care and stuff like that. Can you explain that a little bit?
That's my day job. So as an outreach director, I talk to people about home health and hospice and what's better for them. And I say, here you are. Here's home health. We see you getting better, stronger, walking further, those kind of things. Here's hospice. Not here's hospice.
Yeah.
But like I said, with Rebecca, it was the 3 days. But the longer someone's on hospice, it's been proven the longer they will live because their pain's managed, their anxiety's managed, and their body's able to relax, and they're able to live longer and have and when I say live, I don't just mean survive. They're able to have conversations and not be in pain and see their grandchildren and those kind of things instead of, oh, I don't need pain medications, and they're writhing in pain and not living life. And so it's something I have a talk with people almost every day, that they have this misconception. Well, I'm not dying. I'm like, we're all dying.
Yeah.
Like that's happening. But no, I don't think you're dying tomorrow either. But I do think you're declining. And so it's just better care.
Yeah, it was super eye-opening to me, and my grandpa too, who like heard the word hospice and was like, what does that mean? And then when we got some more education, it was like, oh, okay, actually, yeah, this could maybe be really great for him and for the family. So you got a book. You're like, how do I start a nonprofit?
And this was before I worked in hospice. I had only done that rehab side, that getting stronger side.
Okay.
And I got the book, and the first thing, you have to file for a name with the Secretary of State. And I got the name. We went to Yellowstone, and we stopped at the bear sanctuary outside of Bozeman. And one was, I think it was Brutus and Bella. I don't know why I remember that, but that was the bear's name. And so Nika, my youngest, was 3 at the time. And she said, one more time, Mommy. I want to see the bear one more time. And she kept saying, I'm like, that's what we're going to call this. We're going to call it one more time because I just want to do it one more time. And so I filled the paperwork out, got the okay from the Secretary of State. Then you get a tax ID. Then you file with the IRS. And I was able to get it all. Actually, December 17th will be our 8th year of being IRS exempt, or however. Since we got our 501c3.
Yeah.
So my dad hadn't even been gone for a full year when we were able to start doing it.
Did you know really what you'd be, I mean, you kind of knew what you'd be doing, but not really. Like, how did you actually, did you just go and get the name and do those things and be like, I'm going to figure out what the organization actually looks like kind of after I get this all done?
I keep joking that I say, okay, and then we figure it out. And that is so what we did. Like, the first time someone handed me money to help us, I was like, I guess I better get a bank account. I had no idea. I had worked for other nonprofits or volunteered for them that were fully established. So no, I had no idea. I knew I wanted to help people. I thought it would be like Make-A-Wish, but with adults. Our mission says life limiting instead of terminal, so that we can help people that are blind and going to live a long life, or someone that's in a wheelchair, or even someone that's 100 years old, which maybe they're going to be on hospice, maybe not. Maybe they're super healthy. So we left it broad intentionally.
And you always knew that you wanted to leave it broad, or as you started walking down the path and figuring things out, then you saw, oh, wait, maybe you thought it was going to be narrower, and then you realized you always knew.
And so that was the nice thing working in home health, is that there are so many diseases. And there's so many people that need help. I knew I didn't want to be just cancer. I knew I didn't want to be just Alzheimer's. I knew I wanted to be able to help anybody that needed help. So our mission statements never changed. So it's to help adults with life-limiting conditions have a memorable experience one more time. That I wrote that on my letter to the Secretary of State.
Okay. And so what was the first, I don't know how to, how did you go about getting your first client or providing your first experience, or what did that, once you establish yourself and you're like, I know what I want to do. I mean, I know you had the connections, right, to probably find those people quite easily, but what was that like? So
actually, our first event, or experience, we call them experiences, I had not gotten my 501c3 back yet, but so I had to establish a board. I had the 2 people that I had put on my application, but I'm like, obviously, me and 2 people can't run this. And I met with a girlfriend of mine, Amy Bartu, who actually was the first person to work on IDEFY in Idaho, and then also had a similar job as me. And so I'm like, I kind of want to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And so I tell her what I'm doing, and her husband, Gary, was very sick at the time. And I said, is there something Gary wants to do? And she was like, what? And she's like, oh, we'll come back to Gary. She's like, I want to help you. I want to be on your board of directors. So she was my first treasurer. And I said, that's fine. But no, what my passion is I want to help people. So what's Gary want to do? Does he want to go golfing, or what's he want to do? And she's like, well, I'll ask him. He wanted to have a wake before he died because he wanted to hear what people were going to say about him. And he was also young. He was in his 60s. And Amy was like, well, he wants to have this wake. So we had a really, really great party.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of it, Gary came out and he said, I don't need a memorial. You guys, I know what you think of me. I know that you love me, and I'm okay with whatever happens.
Mm-hmm.
And he continued to decline and died of pancreatic cancer a few months later. But so that was my first one. And then after that, being in the field that I'm in, and once I told people, I met with the residents of Garden Plaza. It's a assisted living in Post Falls, and they have like a monthly meeting. And so I met with them, and I was like, what would this look like to you? And one thing that was very big to all of them were birthday parties, whether it was theirs or their children's. Those were days that they'd want to redo. So our second thing after bucket wishes was having the birthday parties on hospice. So we've probably done thousands, if I'm being honest.
Wow.
I've never counted up, but it's whatever kind of dessert they want and then whatever they want. So sometimes it's a cupcake with their hospice nurse. Sometimes it's a party with clowns. We've done all sorts of different things. But one of my favorites, a gentleman asked for a lemon meringue pie, and I try to make them as much as possible. They're homemade, and I had never made one before. And so I made like a dozen because you can't, I don't know if you know, but you can't tell if they're cooked inside.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, I don't want to feed him raw eggs. So I made like a dozen, and I took it to him. And he looked at me, and he could tell, that it didn't come from a store. And he's like, did you make this? And I said, I did. And he started crying and said, I haven't had a homemade lemon meringue pie since my mom made it for my 8th birthday. And so it was a good day.
Yeah. Sounds amazing. Do you do more on the birthday side or more on the bucket list side?
We actually have 4 programs.
Okay.
So we have the bucket wish experiences, which sometimes they're very big. So it really just depends. If somebody wants to go look at Christmas lights, I can do 10. We can do 10 events this week. We can all go look at Christmas lights. But if somebody wants to go to Disneyland, it depletes the funds very quickly.
Yes.
I do a hospice birthday party for any hospice patient that anybody asks me. So that's just going to happen. I mean, they might get a $1 cake mix that I'm doctor up for them, but they'll do that. We also do legacy videos, so kind of similar to this, and talk to them, and I ask them about their lives. And then veterans pinnings, where we recognize veterans that have not been recognized before for their service. A lot of World War II and Korean veterans, and that's really moving as well, just because they say, oh, nobody ever told me thank you.
Yeah. Is it hard to pull these wishes out of adults who are like, oh, that's not for me, spend your time and money on children or.
Sometimes. And then sometimes it's not.
I've been waiting for somebody to ask.
Well, and usually it's funny because I'll put it out there. Like I've said the Christmas light thing a lot because in 8 years, this is the first time. I mean, we're only 2 weeks from Christmas and nobody's asked me to do that. I'm like, where are my Christmas people? Doesn't somebody want to go around the lake and look at the lights? So I keep saying it. And I'm like, just listen. Someone's going to say it to you that, oh, I wish I could go look at the lights again. Or, oh, I wish, but I can't drive my car. And people will say it. And so usually they say it. And then their caregiver daughter, whoever heard it, has heard of one more time and says, hey, can you come talk to my dad? And we surprise them. Awesome. And then once we've done something once, people will see it. Sidecar rides, that was something that I never expected to get into and open my big mouth. And then now we do it all the time. we bought our own sidecar so that we can do it more often.
Wow. What is like the most unique request you've had?
The balloon clown for a 101-year-old. That was a surprise.
They just wanted somebody to make balloon animals.
Yep. I don't know why, and I was super surprised by it, but she liked it. We had a tattoo, and the woman had breast cancer, and she was getting cremated, and her tattoo said, "Roll me up and smoke me when I die." So there's that. There's some, we've done more than one to Disneyland, but one of them that really was rough. It was really rough. She was 25 and had a very aggressive breast cancer, and she had a 5-year-old. And so we sent the two of them to Disneyland with her parents. And so the other people that have gone to Disneyland were much older. So that was a young one.
Yeah. And then how do you fund all this? Is it just from donors? Do you have big fundraisers? Where are you getting the funding for some of these big ticket items?
Fundraising and grants, because we never charge anybody for anything. So if we really don't have the money, I'll tell you a funny story about the money after that. But it's fundraisers and grants. We have a grant writer. We have a huge fundraiser coming up in January on the 24th. I can't remember if I sent it to Lindsay, the Mr. North Idaho.
Yes, you did.
And so that'll be our biggest one ever, because it's not just for One More Time. It has 23 nonprofits involved, because all of the men that are contestants are representing other nonprofits. So.
Okay.
But that one, and so I picked the Alzheimer's Association and Family Promise, and the ones that I love, I encourage them to be a part of it. But yep, we had a Nightmare Before Christmas up here in Sandpoint over at Luther Park. They hosted it for us, and so with the auction and donations and things that way.
And it's been enough to keep you going. I mean, it's the number of experiences that you're providing, it just seems insane.
We make it work. So what I was going to tell you, a few years ago, we had an event, and so we had money in the bank. And I had a family reach out. Actually, it was the wife's doctor reached out and said she's got a bad heart. She is Native American, and her mom did drugs when she was pregnant. So this girl has never done anything wrong in her life. And after she had her son, she developed this heart problem. Her husband is a disabled veteran. The son in question was born with Down syndrome. So it was just like the whole family was having a hard time. And he's like, can we do something for him? And I said, yeah, I got all this money. What do they want to do? And he's like, they want to go to Legoland. I have never been to Legoland, but it might be the most expensive place in the world. And I learned that the hard way. And I was like, yeah, we'll send them all to Legoland. And so I say this, and then literally I'm driving home that night, and our accountant, Shannon is her name, she's also our board treasurer, she's like, Tiffany, something's wrong with the bank account. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, can you pull over and can you look at the bank account? And I get in, and we had $4. And I'm like, that's not right. Like, something's wrong. And she's like, it appears that $18,000 has disappeared in a month. And so she's looking at it, and it was like 1 cent, and they used Facebook Pay. And they stole all of our money, and they locked down our Facebook. Like, I personally cannot access. If I am Tiffany on Facebook, I can't look at the old One More Time one. Other people can see it, but they blocked me, so they stole our money. So I didn't get the notification, and I was just like, oh my! I just told this woman that I'm gonna send her family to Legoland, and so I go in, and I'm just crying, and I tell my husband Manny, and I'm like, I'm going to put it on a credit card. I can't untell her this. I'm not. And he's like, okay, we're not even going to Legoland.
Yeah, he's like, whoa, honey. Yeah.
Okay. And I'm just like, just understand. I have to. I can't untell her. And so I'm like bawling, and I walk out to our mailbox, and I open this envelope from the Marcus Anderson Family Foundation, and it was $5,000, and the trip was $4,500. And I was like, oh my gosh, they just gave it. And the bank fixed it, and we got the money back anyways, but it was like literally God gave me the money to take these people to Legoland. He was like, just calm yourself down. So
he's like, I got you. Chill.
Just
okay.
trust.
Yes, that's amazing. And how can people, I guess, get involved and volunteer? If it sounds like maybe some of these smaller things you need a driver for this, or you need someone who's a really good baker and can make homemade things, or what are your needs as far as volunteers?
Those you just
I just need
you name them.
Okay.
Doing the interviews, especially because we'd be able to broaden it. I can only come to Sandpoint once a week. So if we had 10 people in Sandpoint that wanted it, and you wanted to talk to them or whoever and wanted to send it, that would be amazing. The birthday parties, absolutely. Every day there's hundreds of people that we could give birthday cakes if we knew about it. Telling us that, and that they're available and that they will do it, would be amazing. And they can do that. We have a volunteer tab on our website. And then obviously helping with the fundraising, because Legoland's $5,000. So sometimes you just need a lot of money, and sometimes you need to take a guess. So,
So do you put out, when, I don't, you don't need to tell me like the details of your finances or things, but when you get something that's a big like a big ask, somebody wants to go to Legoland, SeaWorld, I don't know, they want to go out of the country somewhere. I don't know if you've ever done that. Do you then do like a call out, like, oh, we have this experience that we're trying to provide. It costs $3,000. Can you help? Or do you just say, once we have the $3,000, we'll reach out to you and we'll send you? Or what does that look like?
kind of both. We have never sent anyone out of the country. A few years ago, we had a gal that really wanted to go to Italy, and her name is Rachel, or was Rachel. She was a month younger than I am. And she wanted to go to Italy because it was very romantic, and she had never been married, and the men. And she just kept saying that to me. She's like, the men, the way they talk, and they're so handsome. And I'm like, but she had a stomach cancer that had metastasized to her pelvic bone, so she couldn't fly to San Diego, let alone to Italy. Okay. And I'm like, what are we going to do? So I always say yes. It's a character flaw. I always say yes, and then I figure it out. And so I say yes, and I'm like, oh, what are we going to do? Well, we threw her a night in Italy, and the food got donated. And we went to a ballroom dancing club, and the men got donated. And all these lovely men came and danced with her, and we were taught ballroom dancing, and her Airbnb got donated. So... I mean, we paid for a tank of gas for her to drive up from Lewiston with her dad, and we just had this really great weekend.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So sometimes we're not able to do what people want exactly, whether it's because of their disease process or because of funds, but we make it work.
And how far geographically, like, are the people that you'll serve?
Well, I would serve anywhere. Like I always say that. But the places we have served are Lewiston to Bonners and Wenatchee to Missoula.
Okay.
So usually what I can drive in a day.
You've never had someone like from Florida reach out and be like, hey, I want...
No, because if they did, I probably would figure out how to do it. I'd be like, okay, I got someone in Florida. We'll figure that out.
Have you had... are there any other organizations out there like already that exist that are like you, or anything that's popped up that's similar? Because of course, when I was reading about you before, doing this interview, I was like, oh, they're Make-A-Wish, but for adults. And I thought, did that not exist before them? Nobody was doing that.
Most of the things are specific to a disease. So yes, there are different things for Alzheimer's, cancer, breast cancer, Huntington's, MS. I mean, so disease specific, yes, but not one that was all inclusive like that. Also, not one that you don't have to have a terminal disease. Like I said, we had a Led Zeppelin concert for a gentleman that was blind, so that's why the blind sticks in my head. And then like the legacy videos, I've seen other people start doing that, but then they are not doing the other part. And then as far as the hospice birthdays, I don't know if anybody else does that.
Yeah, and it's once you're doing it, it kind of seems like a no-brainer in a sense. Like, why? Yes, this should exist, and why hasn't it? But that's the thing, too, about starting nonprofits. I think so many times people realize there's a need for something and think why doesn't this exist, or why isn't somebody doing this? And then they have to get the comment that you got, which is, why don't you do it? Exactly. You step up and do it. Then you go, why did I open my mouth with that idea?
Often. You often think that, what was I thinking?
Yeah. But I mean, how involved are your kids with it? Like, what has been the benefit of your children getting to see mom, and I don't know how involved your husband is, but at least see you serving in such a way?
They're all very involved. And so my husband, a side note, he is not my children's biological father, but he did adopt them. And so I met Manny because he had a motorcycle club and I needed a sidecar. And that was actually how we met. We didn't start dating, obviously, right off the bat, but that was how I met him, was doing One More Time. And so his motorcycle club is Bikers Against Teen Addiction. So they are a nonprofit as well, and they're raising money to help kids, with addiction problems. And then my kids all are involved and help with the fundraising and help bake the cakes. There was a week years ago, it must have been like career day. And my oldest daughter, who had said she never wanted to work like me, had decided to go into marketing. And so she actually does hiring for Heritage Health now. So she literally does the same type of job as me at a different company. And so that week it like came up, your daughter wants to go to school for marketing and business. And I was like, and don't want to be like me. And the same week I get this email from one of my son's teachers saying, Hagen said he wanted to make hospice birthday cakes for a living, and I told him that's not a thing, and he said that you do that, so I'm wondering what he's talking about. So I got to tell her. Then my now 13-year-old Sloan, she's my firecracker. She was very little at the time. She was about 5, and she had drawn a picture of a lady spraying another lady down, and she said giving people baths because I had been a CNA, and so the teacher was like, caregiver, and she even had to ask me, she's like, do you hose people down? What? I'm like, that's, what we say. And then my baby said at the same school as Sloan, Nika said, I just want to be a mom. I have the best mom. And it was just like they all said it in 1 week, and I'm like, oh, I must be doing something right. And they all, when I've said before, do you feel like I take away from you with one more time or it's pushed on you? And they're all like, no, it's just the right thing to do. Yeah. So I don't know if it's because they've grown up in it or believe in it, but they all jump in and help when I need it.
Yeah, it's a thing that us moms have to juggle with. I was literally having a conversation about this with my mom a couple nights ago because I have a nonprofit and she and my children are very young, and she's like, you need to be sure that you're not, pulling away from your own children and that your family comes first and stuff. And she said, I have some regrets about, she used to run a nonprofit when I was a kid. And she's like, I have some regrets about that. And one time I took your guys' entire spring break because we were doing this fundraiser and it wasn't even a good fundraiser. It failed. It flopped. And so I just stole your spring break for you to sit at this stupid fundraiser. It was an art thing. So that's why it was multiple days over spring break. And she's like, no one even showed up and blah, blah, blah. And she's brought this up multiple times. And I told her, I was like, Mom, when I reflect on my childhood, there's some things that I'm like, I'll do that a little differently. I'll tweak this. I'll do that. My kids will say the same thing when they reflect on their childhood with me. But that's not your time serving. Doesn't even register at all. It's never come up with me and my brother. We've never said, remember when Mom did this? The whole thing, her running that nonprofit or some of the events that maybe didn't go as well, we never thought a thing about it. There's other things
right, exactly.
that I might critique, but not that at all. And I told her that, and she looked kind of surprised, And so, but she is right that you don't want it just to take over your life. And whether it's your regular job, nonprofit job, whatever it is, you don't want it to take over your life for sure, and you want to make sure that you keep your priorities straight. But it seems to me, and you're kind of affirming this with this conversation, that when children see their parents doing something that's so clearly worthwhile and giving back, they get it. Mm-hmm. They get it. It's when you're away working for someone else, making other people rich, doing something they can't see that's not that's when they might have a bitterness towards your work. But when they can be involved with it and they can see it and they understand the mission, then they're like, I get it.
And I was raised that way. I always joke that I grew up in a nursing home. My mom was a director of nursing. That's why I said nurses are crazy. And so, if we wanted to hang out with Mom and she was still working, I would go play the piano. I actually won Volunteer of the Year when I was 17 for the Lutheran Society because I was just, I got to practice my piano. Yeah. I might as well do it here with my mom. And I've always, with my regular job, my kids will go to open houses with me. Obviously I don't take them to see hospice patients, but if I'm just going to the facility for whatever reason or they're having a party, I've tried to also make them more empathetic to the sick and dying just because one time I was with a group of teenagers and I, for life, I can't remember why. It wasn't my own kids. And we went into a nursing home and they were scared. They were like, I don't want to touch them. I'm like, hey, George, how's it going? And they're like, no, don't touch him. You're going to get sick. And I'm like, you can't you can't get sick because they're old. Like that's not something that they pass around, but they were genuinely afraid. And I remember thinking, oh, I hope my kids are never like that. And nope, they're the first ones to go push a wheelchair. Or, here, let me open that door for you. And I don't know that they would do that for you or I, but if they see somebody struggling, they will go do that.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really cool thing. And we've had a few, not often, so frequently, people when they start nonprofits and do this kind of work, whatever their passion is, whether they're environmentalists or they're doing something for the animals or whatever their issue is, it tends to be older people who aren't have younger children. And I get it, because younger children take a lot of your time and you're in the trenches and all of that. But there definitely is value in being like a family nonprofit charitable work and not waiting till your children are all grown up and out of the house to do whatever it is that you feel called to do. So,
well, and then there is the balance. I make sure that we read books at home alone, or, talk about things. I get teased a lot that I must go on vacation once a month, but maybe I do. I'm always, you want to go? Okay, you want to go to Montana? Let's go. You want to go to McCall for the carnival? So we'll go for weekends all the time, and then I am gone. And I do say that it's nice with my work because it is demanding. And then my nonprofit, all I do is talk about dying all day long. So it's really, really awesome to go do a lot of living. And so when the day is done and I'm with my kids, we have a good time.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that too, and you kind of just answered it, but people that are in nonprofit work and dealing with heavier stuff, or, stuff that can be very heartbreaking, maybe almost on a daily basis or weekly basis, how do you manage that? Is that just leaning into your family, taking those trips like you said? How do you make sure that you don't get sucked into some kind of dark place because of the darkness you kind of have to see regularly?
I don't know. I do all the self-care things. I always joke about it because somebody will say, oh, have you had a massage? I'm like, get one every other week. I run, I exercise. That's one of the things my kids and I do. We do 5Ks.
Take care of yourself physically.
Yep, half marathons. So I do all of that. I do my mental health. Having stayed in the area that I grew up in, I'm super lucky to have an amazing social circle.
Yes.
Like, I don't have to go to a therapist. I have my best friend. I can call my sister. I can call my mom. My oldest daughter is my best friend. You know what I mean? We talk every day. I can call my niece. I can, I am very, very lucky to have these people so close. And if I ever said, I need you, they could be there.
Yeah.
And so those things, I also try really hard to do it and remind myself that I need to live. Like I genuinely, okay, I can sleep tomorrow. Yes, I want to go to that concert. Yes, let's do it. And I think that a lot. And I often will think, because like with the legacy videos, you do this talking one-on-one with somebody, and I hear these things. So one of my favorite videos I ever did was a gentleman named Ken, and oh gosh, we talked for like 7 hours. I mean, it was, I like had to come back a bit, but he, Anacortes was his favorite place in the world on Orcas Island. And so when I was there this summer with the Girl Scouts, because my two youngest are Girl Scouts, I thought of him and I'm like, I'm here for you, Ken, because you can't be. And I reminded myself that even though he's not here, I'm doing it for him and teaching other kids. This is a beautiful place. Like, come here.
Wonderful. So we talked about, you got a fundraiser coming up in January. We've talked about kind of how folks can volunteer, your 4 different programs that you have. What have we missed? What have we not covered? Have we pretty much covered everything?
I think so.
Or whoever's listening to this is going to know everything they need to know. Where can they find you? What's the name of the website?
Our website is onemoretime.com, and then the fundraiser is mrnorthidaho.com. And as we're talking, I just want to say to you, make sure that we keep in touch because, like I said, we're representing those other nonprofits. This is going to be a yearly thing. People love it. So I would love for you to have a mister at my nonprofit showcase.
We'll keep that in mind. Tiffany, thank you so much for what you do. It's so important, and you put your heart and soul into it, and it shows. And, I hope that there does become some copycat organizations, and that, this thing spreads and it becomes something more known and automatic, kind of like a Make-A-Wish. Everybody's heard of Make-A-Wish,
exactly.
Right? I hope that there's something comes that's the same, whether it's another org that has a different name but doing the same thing, or someone's like, let me start a chain, can we start our own little franchise over here, you know, kind of thing, would be wonderful to see. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. For more information, you can go to crecIdaho.com. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you again soon.